Welcome back to the Black Nerd 2.0 show. Today we're going to make a response video to Danger Dash's response to my video. I'm also going to talk about Jacob's Ladder and how it's one of the dopest non-horror horror films ever made. They're about to remake it. So we're going to talk about remakes again. Danger Dash brought up an interesting point about how the Phoenix, when she pretty much destroyed everybody in the original third installment of the X-Men films, including Professor X, and Magneto just watched on as he became nothing. Little digital bits of Captain Picard floated away into space as the Phoenix started to kill everybody. And that even included Scott Summers too. And that was pretty bad. But then to start a whole new series and bring some of those characters back and then have like a new Professor X, but then, Days of Future Past, you still have the old one too. And this is where the multiverse comes in. Like, you can use the multiverse to kind of break up the convolutedness, if that's the right word, in order to make it more sensible to new audiences. You kind of have to explain that. The multiverse in itself is kind of complex and confusing as well. So let's get into the multiverse. The multiverse is very confusing. Each multiverse has its own version of Captain Britain, who watches various versions of the British Isles. The current continuity that we are currently in is called Earth 616, and each of these different multiverses has a Merlin to watch over it and a Sorcerer Supreme like Doctor Strange, who is appointed by the Vishanti to guard against magical attacks. And within the multiverse, you have characters within X-Men who kind of weave in between the multiverses with storyline. Characters like X-Man, who has the ability to go in between the different realms of reality. You have Rachel Summers, who also can do it. Cable, he's a reality traveler as well. And that's all the more reason to love the X-Men. Movies that further go into the Marvel Universe should definitely explore this realm, and they should also explain it so it doesn't confuse audiences when they see a whole nother timeline. And if they're not even adding this multiverse layer to the Marvel Universe, and they're just silly. And I think as they go further into the character of Thanos and the Infinity Gems and Doctor Strange, and you get into that weird cosmic side of Marvel, they'll explore that more. Yes, that whole thing with Professor X and X-Men and the two different franchises, and then we're, retconning the whole thing, but we're bringing over certain characters that did work. I mean, they tried, but they could have definitely used the multiverse layer to make that better, and just taking a small time to explain that, hey, there's different continuities and the shit can change, and blah 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 can go over here and you can go over here, and that's how we can do this in this movie, and we'll just be like, oh, instead of like, what the fuck's going on? Now let's talk about the female characters in X-Men. I did talk about how dynamic and complex the female characters are in X-Men, but this doesn't show through in the movies. And it sucks that we have to get the reduced form of these characters so they don't overshadow the male characters. And I don't know if that's necessarily the reason why they're thinking this, or maybe the whole realm of comic books is new and they're just going with men because that's what they feel will sell. But these female characters are freaking badass. It just sucks that they do that with movies sometimes, especially when they're adopting from something that has source material, and they won't just trust the source material. Like, that's why the shit's hot. The shit's hot because you movie execs learn about adopting these other mediums into movies because they're hot, they're selling, and you notice like the source material works. Just go with it. Just go with it. Dumbed down version of Storm 2. On the streets of Cairo in Africa, her parents died, and she went into this tribe, and the tribe thought she was like this African goddess, Can you put African goddess on your resume? I don't think so. And the storm that we get can, levitate slowly the height that a novice wizard can levitate. Like Hermione could levitate like that. And we'll get like a couple lightning strikes and some thunder, but she's easily subdued by enemies or Magneto. And it's like, what the hell? Like, she's way more powerful, and you can see her like zipping and flying and using wind to throw Colossus, big ass heavy ass Colossus at some shit, at like Juggernaut or some shit like that. And this is the shit that they fail to use. There's scenes in, I'm getting worked up, nerd rant. There's scenes in the X-Men cartoon where you see Storm throw Wolverine to Colossus. Colossus will bounce Wolverine off and he'll hit a Sentinel in the head, and then he'll cut the head off, and Jean Grey will lift the head and throw it at Magneto, and he'll try to use this magnetism to try to do it, but then when he hits it, he'll get head butted in the head by Colossus, and they'll use all this team shit to kind of get shit done, and it's like they don't use that. Like, it's a waste. And that sucks. Nerd rant over. Danger Dash's other point. I like to call it, let them eat cake. And that is the end of part 1 of my response to Danger Dash. Stay tuned for part 2.